Hey, how about that? I made a second one. Welcome to Uncut Nonsense, a show where you're about to see a grown man very upset about his football team. Here we're going to be dissecting the NFC East and our predictions for, or my predictions at least, for the upcoming season. NFC East, of course, has your Dallas Cowboys, your Philadelphia Eagles, your Washington Commanders, and the New York Giants. Now, disclaimer: I actually am a Giants fan, so it's been a lot of crying these last several years. I haven't had a good year since probably 2011, beginning of 2012, when they won the last Super Bowl. So besides that, it's been a very long road and a very painful one. But I guess we can always try again now that we don't have Daniel Jones. Of course, I am your host, Doc Klugman, and let's get right into it then. Starting off right now, we have the Washington Commanders. Commanders last year finished up second in the NFC East at 12-5, home record of 7-2, very respectful, and the away record of 5-3. Big story was Jaden Daniels, the rookie coming in there, very clutch and being able to take care of the football, not make a lot of those classic mistakes that you would see from a rookie quarterback that's starting immediately in his rookie season. It's accompanied by Dan Quinn, head coach for the very first time this last year. Him obviously coming as the defensive coordinator originally from the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of people kind of threw him under the bus because of struggles on their last postseason loss, where the defense just gets dismantled by the Green Bay Packers in the wild card round, and the heavily favored Cowboys go down one and done again. A lot of people didn't know whether or not he would be able to, take the reins as actual head coach for honestly a struggling Washington Commanders team. However, he and proved many people wrong, and they were able to put around one of the best sort of rookie seasons from a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback. It kind of matches a little bit of what there was going on in Houston these last 2 years. And the big question is if they can do it again. Will Jaden Daniels fall into that sophomore slump that we do see many of these hotshot rookies get into? A lot of people don't know, because they see that they're new. You don't have all the tape on them. You don't know how they'll react in general to the season or the actual change of the NFL, and they fall into that sophomore slump. So we'll see if that actually does become the case for the Washington Commanders. I really think that might be what we're looking for offensively. Points per game, they finished top five. And they also finished top five in offensive rush. Very efficient running the ball. Offensive passing, you give Jaden Daniels a lot of credit. 17th. It wasn't anything too crazy now, but it was average. Again, remember, it's a rookie. They were average when it came to that. But the big thing, taking care of the ball. Only 16 turnovers basically by the Commanders. The turnover differential ended up being one because they had very few takeaways. But the fact that you had a rookie quarterback that was able to hang on to the ball, not cough it up, not throw dumb interceptions. The other thing that really pointed out was the accuracy. Very accurate, not a lot of completions, especially in the beginning of the season when that would be when you would have all these jitters going on. So yes, I know the numbers don't look as fancy as what they could be, but it still is very promising moving forward with the offense. Defense, a little bit different of a story. Points per game, 18th in the leagues, 30th in the defensive rushing game. They really could not stop anybody when it came to running the ball against them. It was a struggle that they had from start to finish, pretty much no matter what team they ended up facing. Very efficient in the secondary, though. Third overall in the whole league when it came to the defensive passing scheme for them. And it really did work. That was the thing that stood out. That was the thing that basically allowed the Commanders to be able to coast through and become a very effective team. You had all these hotshot teams especially come postseason time. They were able to throw the ball well, and the Commanders were successful at least enough to stop them. And then you turn over to what they were able to do on offense was able to allow them to sort of make their way through, going obviously from the rest of the regular season into the postseason, where they had a very good run before ultimately getting stopped by Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game. We'll get to Philly a little bit later. Let's talk about, though, their schedule this year. You have obviously your divisional opponents, but then at home you have Seattle, Detroit, Chicago, the Las Vegas Raiders, as well as Denver. It's not a bad schedule when it comes to being at home. Obviously, you get that nice home field advantage automatically, and it's not a huge daunting run. The big thing, Seattle, you don't know whether or not they could be a wild card team to where you don't know what to expect from them. You've seen them drop many games that they should win. You've seen them win many games that you've kind of counted them out on. I think the big scary part, obviously, besides Philadelphia, maybe even Dallas, but Detroit at home. Thank goodness you have them at home because it's going to be a rematch. Last time in the postseason, you played them in Detroit and you ended up beating them in Detroit. This time, you get them at home in Washington. I think if they're able to really turn around and get another big win from there on that one, that's going to be a huge boost for this team throughout the entire season. On the road, you got Atlanta, you got Green Bay. We talked about Green Bay in the other video. It was really, really stacked up now team. Minnesota, you don't know. JJ McCarthy, of course. KC, that's going to be a tough one. The Los Angeles Chargers. Again, that's going to be a tough one. You're playing in LA, as I joked about in the last video. They don't have real fans in there, so you might actually be able to sort of call it another home game for yourself if the Washington faithful want to come out there for them. And then you got Miami. Obviously, that's the additional ninth road game that you're going to be getting this year from the AFC. Uh, and Miami's a hit or miss. Obviously, you're playing them in Miami. Miami's known to be very good at home, at least in the more comfortable, warmer weather. It's when they have to start playing cold games, is when all of a sudden the Dolphins forget how to play football. So there is a lot of possible wins in there. Even though they did finish second in the league, second in the division this last season, they don't have the worst schedule out there. Obviously, it is tough teams. You're playing multiple playoff teams, that are at least multiple teams that were in the playoffs last year. You know, it's still a tough road. Do not get me wrong. However, the home and road ratio still gives a pretty good chance for the Commanders. I like what I see. I just hope they don't fall into that sophomore slump, at least from Jaden Daniels. I hope Dan Quinn sticks to his guns of what he did last time. Of course, there's always room to improve. There's always room to switch things around. I'm not saying that you do the same old, because that's how you get exposed and that's how teams take advantage of you. And then those wins that you had last year become losses. However, I don't want them to change too much just because of some blemishes. Just because maybe the passing game last year offensively was not the greatest in the world. Just because obviously the defensive rush was atrocious. I don't want to switch over the entire thing that they had going for them. I still think there is potential in some of those spots. Clearly, there's potential in a lot of other locations, but they're still not a bad team. I would like to see the defense improve so it doesn't have to be Jaden Daniel coming from behind, throwing Hail Mary passes for wins. But I do like what I see out of the Washington Commanders, and I think there's a good potential for them this year. After that, you have your defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. As a Giants fan, this one hurts. You trade away Saquon Barkley to go on the Eagles, and I have no ill will towards Saquon Barkley. I've seen the tape. I've seen how the staffing for the Giants were completely poor by just sending him off like that and going with Daniel Jones just because obviously he was the quarterback. And it's not that Saquon Barkley was asking for a ridiculous amount of money. It wasn't like he was holding out on him or asking for something that really no running back should be asking for. It was none of that stuff. I mean, let's be adults here. I like to think that even though I am a diehard Giants fan, I'm an honest one. Let's be honest about this situation here. They did not do very well in handling that. And it worked out for Philadelphia. They obviously got Saquon Barkley. He had an incredible season. he ended up basically being almost MVP level, which is unheard of for somebody these days who was a non-quarterback in that position. At this point, the MVP becomes a quarterback. It's a quarterback competition at this point of which quarterback does better. And they ended up really showing strides. The defense was incredible, led by Sweat, even though on the defensive line, even though he's not returning this year, they were 8-1 at home, almost perfect. 6-2 on the road. Still can't get much better with that when you're not in the city of brotherly love. Um, Defense wise, points per game, second. They were first in defensive passing, which was absolutely, obviously incredible. Defensive rush, they were still in the top 10 everywhere on defense, almost top 10 on the offensive side, too. Second with Saquon Barkley in the running attack. Also got to throw in there with some Jalen Hurts as well. He can run the ball. He's very effective with that. I think having Saquon there really allowed the opportunity for him to not have to always take it himself. You actually had a very, very good back behind you that could share that workload. Same thing that we saw in Baltimore. It wasn't always then Lamar Jackson doing it. He had Henry behind him to be able to actually share the workload. That's critical because offensive rushing games are going away. Running backs are not lasting nearly as long as they used to. They take a beating more and more every single year. So running quarterbacks or scramblers or whatever you want to call it are now becoming the new thing. And the rushing attack is also going away. To still have a rushing attack be that dominant is absolutely incredible. Offensive pass, that was the one Achilles heel. That's what got Hurts to be ridiculed the entire season of like, oh, well, now we'll have to play quarterback if you don't have Barkley. Listen, I hate the Eagles just like any other Cowboys or Giants fan, but he is a good quarterback. He's a good leader. He's a good playmaker. He's good in many different scenarios. And I think it's about time that we actually give him credit for these wins, credit for this championship. Obviously, it's not all him. I understand that. I'm not blind to that. However, we have to give him credit with this. He is an incredible athlete, and he's able to do a lot when there are plenty of other quarterbacks out there that don't do nearly as much as he does. And it is impressive. I will give him that. However, I still hate the Eagles. Moving on, we got the home and the road schedules. At home, they'll play Detroit. That's a tough one as well. The Denver, Las Vegas, Chicago, the LA Rams, too. That's going to be an interesting one. The Rams are a team that's coming back there and has ended up doing some good things, hopefully. But, we're still kind of hit or miss on what they're going to do and what they're going to provide moving forward. I still think it's going to be a good one. It's going to be in Philadelphia, so that's a big advantage for the Eagles to have a team like the Rams coming to town, but you still end up getting the home field advantage. On the road, you got Tampa Bay. That's going to be interesting. You got Green Bay, another good matchup now. I guess Eagle fans they still can't get away from Parsons. You got to still play him one more time. Minnesota, KC will be a tough one. The LA Chargers you got on the road, and then you have Buffalo. That's going to be the big one right there. You have to go into the Bills Stadium and you have to deal with them. It's always been fun these last couple of years to see the Philadelphia Eagles take on the Buffalo Bills. This one will be up in Buffalo, so I think there's still plenty of wins on the table for the Eagles. They're still not going to be, they're not going to bottom out and be a bad team or even average team. They have the opportunity to do something that an NFC East team has not done in at this point now. I think we're getting on a little over 2 decades, and that's win or have back-to-back uh, NFC East champions in a row. And the Eagles, I think, have a very good shot to do it. I mean, we'll go to my predictions for the standings later on, but I mean, it's a two-horse race in my opinion. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can probably have guessed that by now, but I think the big thing is just improving the passing game. Obviously, sharing the wealth around. You have Saquon back there. You just got to be careful because he has been known to have some injury issues, as we've seen in the past when he was in New York with the Giants. You just got to be careful with that. You got to make sure that he stays healthy, make sure that the defense still stays sharp. I don't think that really is going to be an issue. Of course, it's bad you lose Sweat. However, I still think that you do have good opportunities here on the defense, and I still like that secondary that the defense have had even though we've obviously had off-season changes. But like I said, I really do like what I see from Philadelphia. I think they're just going to be another good team again. I mean, the schedule, of course, they play the other first place teams, but it's not so daunting where I'm thinking to myself, wow, they're going to have some trouble. No, I think they're going to manage really well as long as they stick to their guns and they keep stuff that we'd seen them do even last year. After that, we got the New York Football Giants. My Giants, and I'm already getting the tissues ready. 3-14 last year. They finished dead last. They were 1-8 at home. This was the 100-year anniversary for them. They had the horrible Montreal Canadiens uniforms, which was atrocious. They were atrocious at home. They were atrocious on the road, 2-6. Turnover. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Turnover differential -8. Daniel Jones, while he was there before he was released, they made sure that he made sure that he threw as many pick sixes as possible. The offense was just horrible. 31 or second to last for the points per game. The rushing attack for the offense, yeah, it was bad, 23rd. And then the passing was even worse at 28. It didn't matter what quarterback he threw in there. It was just a mess from the start. Um, Defensive wise, 21st points per game. It wasn't bottom, but it wasn't good. The defensive rush was bad, 27th. Caveat though, defensive pass 8, top 10. And that's something that really stood out was the fact that with all the struggles that they had, defense still managed to keep them in the game just because they have incredible pass rushers with Bryant Burns that they picked up from Carolina 2 years ago, and Dexter Lawrence. And then they added Carter in the draft in the first round. Obviously, you have Jackson Dart that's going to be in there, quarterback, but he'll play back up to Russell Wilson. I like the chance that the Giants are having to sit their quarterback. I think that's one of the very few good things that they've done in recent years is that at least you have a veteran to do. I'm very big of resting or letting your rookie quarterback not start, but watch and learn. I think that's very, very critical for development. Not a lot of teams do it. I'm happy that at least they're doing it. I will give them props for that because I think if Dart is going to be good, I don't think he would be great in his rookie year. And I think if you have somebody like Russell Wilson sitting there, let him play. You picked him up for a reason. Play him, use him, and have Dart watch somebody who has even won a Super Bowl before. I think that's a very good decision. And I think obviously improving to the defense will make the defense a real, real tough team to stack up against. And I think the defense is going to be a reason why they get some wins there. Now, I think the Giants' name of the game is they just have to improve that offense. Anything is better than what they were doing. They were second to last in points per game. So anything is better than what they were doing last year. When you look at their schedule, they obviously have their divisional opponents at home. They play San Francisco. Again, I mentioned it last video. San Francisco is a mixed bag. I don't know what to expect with them. I think it's going to be a hit or miss. If you get them on a bad day, I think you can beat San Francisco. If you get them while they're thriving, then San Francisco is a tough team to knock down. At home, you also have to deal with KC. That's rough. Chargers, that's not easy either. Minnesota's not easy, but it does depend on JJ McCarthy and how he's doing running the helm. And of course, you have Green Bay again. You can't escape Parsons. You still got to play against him one more game. Better than I guess two with Dallas. But regardless, any game is hard for a team that has been 3-14 that has been absolutely garbage these last several years. On the road, it's a little bit easier. New England, definitely winnable game. Las Vegas Raiders, a winnable game. Chicago can be winnable. New Orleans definitely can be winnable. The Saints have basically done nothing but just sit around all last offseason and even last year. You have Detroit, which will be a tough one, and then you got to go to Denver. Going to Denver is always hard. Mile High Stadium. It's definitely tough to do that. It's becoming basically the new Seattle 12th man. That's what Denver is basically becoming. Nobody wants to play in Denver if you don't have to. It's easy to have the Broncos on your home schedule than it is to have to go to them. But overall, I will say this, and this is not just because I am a fan, it's because I do believe that there is opportunity for them to get better just because you actually have a more reliable quarterback. You obviously have Malik Neighbors and everything that he's been able to do this last season, his rookie year. If he keeps on that trend and stays healthy, then I do think there is an option for them to easily win more than 3 games. Now, I'm not saying they're a 9-win team and they're going to the playoffs. Absolutely not. I'd be stunned, but I'd also be a very, very happy man if that happened. But regardless, I do think that there is genuine opportunity. And I'll be honest, last year I knew they were going to be bad because Daniel Jones was coming back and they did not have Saquon Barkley. So I knew last year was going to be bad. I did not have optimism. This year I have optimism just because of certain changes that were made specifically on the offensive front. Defense, I think, could potentially hold their own water, at least most of the time, as long as you don't rely on them entirely. But I think if the offense does make some more steady improvements, especially in the passing game, and especially just in general, being able to score more points and not have to settle for cheap field goals all day long, I do think that it is possible that they could be something, maybe even double their wins, maybe a 6-win team, and at least head in the right direction before they eventually move on to uh, Dart as their quarterback of the future. Or at least that's the goal of what they have in mind clearly. Otherwise, they would not have drafted. After that, you have the Dallas Cowboys, the team that everybody talks about, America's team, as people say it, America. And it was very disappointing. Last year was the year. Jerry Jones, we're all in. All the interviews. He literally sat there in front of all the cameras, as always, and told people, I'm going to say it again. I can't do an accent. I'm going to say it again. We're all in. We're all in. And he was sitting there smiling. And I even said to myself, I was like, I feel like he's trying to convince himself that they're all in. They fell flat. 7-10, third in the East. 2 years ago, they ended up going perfect 8-0 at home. Complete opposite. 2-7 at home. Away was their only saving grace at 5-3 record. The turnovers were horrible. They gave the ball away 28 times. Turnover differential overall was -6. It was horrible. Now I know that the injuries plagued them. Dak was out for a while, especially after getting a contract literally hours before the week 1 last year. He ended up missing a good chunk of games. That makes a difference. I'm not saying that it's some big excuse, but it's a legitimate excuse. And it happens. Injuries are a part of the game. Overall, still, offensive passing last year, 11th in the league. That's not bad. Points per game, 21. Getting worse. Rushing attack, they couldn't rush to save their lives. 27th in the league, and that's not going to cut it. You need something better. You need something than an explosive arm of Prescott over to a athletic CeeDee Lamb. And that's what they've relied on. They've relied on paying top dollar for these singular players, and then the rest of their roster suffers. That is the point. Perfect example is the defense. Points per game, second to last. They gave up a lot of points, especially at home in front of their home crowd. Rush, they couldn't stop cold. 29th in the league, horrible. Pass, not much better, 17th, just below the middle ground for the entire league. The offense was just atrocious. And you had Michael Parsons in there, obviously relaying to the better pass defense that they did have. However, he's not a run stopper, so it did suffer. You had your middle linebackers and all your linebackers there that were small and just got mowed over by offensive linemen and running backs and other blockers. It was a mess, and something eventually had to give. And as of a few days ago, that is Michael Parsons. They completed a trade that ended up giving them a player or two plus the big first round pick of this coming 2026 in the draft and a first rounder for 2027. And they give away Parsons to Green Bay. That's good for Green Bay. They get the opportunity to at least do something great this season. I think the deal is better actually for the Cowboys. And I know Jerry is sitting there just being like, oh, like, he had a plan the whole time. He knew it. He knew it. But no, it's not that. He ended up just not wanting to pay, and he ended up giving away Michael Parsons. Let's be adults. That's the whole reason about it. The thing, though, that I think actually would work out is the Dallas Cowboys are very good in the draft. They draft a lot of good players, and a lot of times those players do stick with them for an extended period of time. If you end up getting two good players, then in a couple of years, this could be a very, very good team again, and maybe even have the opportunity to do some good stuff. That's a possibility. And if it means that, if you have a crystal ball and you think to yourself, well, we could be average right now, but keep Micah or give away him and then be great in 5 years. If you had a crystal ball and you knew that, I'd bunker down for another 5 years and be able to expect good things in the future. Now, here it's not their year. It isn't. They're not going to. They still have a dynamic offense. They can still put up points if they need to. Dak's incredible when he's healthy during the regular season. They'll still have the chance to beat up a lot of bad opponents and still put up a fight with some good ones. They like that every single year. At home, they're playing Arizona. It's a winnable game. I know they lost to Arizona last year in a heartbreaker, but it's a winnable game. Green Bay, again, they have the opportunity to win. They could beat Minnesota at home. KC will be tough at home, but at least they're playing them in Dallas and the Chargers. On the road, you got Carolina. You can beat them. Chicago, very winnable. Vegas, winnable. Jets, winnable. Denver. It's in Denver. You got to be careful, but it's not all these games. Like, although yes, they could possibly lose a handful of these games. Some of these games are not exact losses where you're like, oh yeah, there's just no chance. They have the opportunity to do it. You're also playing Detroit. That's going to be a tough one too on the road, especially in Detroit. They obviously have a history of being very good against them, or at least having good matchups against them. And it's been kind of split between them unless it actually matters most in the playoffs. And then I can't trust the Dallas Cowboys at all. But I think the thing is, it's going to be a tough year. My hopes are not really high for them, and I worry that they're going to end up in football purgatory again by having not the worst season, so they don't get the highest draft pick ever, but also not having the greatest season where they don't make it far in the playoffs. It's that purgatory of where you're. It's the saying, "You're damned if you do, damned if you don't." And I feel like this is going to be another average season on paper, but it's just going to be another disappointment overall. So, with that being said, time to see where the standings rack up. Giants, I hate to do it, but you're going to be in last. It's just, I think there's potential, but I need to see it. If I'd seen it the last year or two and being progressively better, I would rate them higher. However, it's just until I see it, I can't believe it. And maybe I'll see it in a few weeks, or maybe I'll see it in a few months or something throughout the season. But as of right now, I don't know how Wilson will do. I don't know how that offense will mesh together. The defense can only do so much. Giants will finish in fourth. Dallas Cowboys, they'll finish in third. Just because, like I said before, it's just not enough, and what they have is not enough to actually be competitive enough in this division at the moment. You told me this 3 or 4 years ago. Yes, they would have a chance, and they could even go back to potentially winning the division again. But in this case, they just don't have enough, and there's just too many other big dogs in the fight right now. Second, it's going to be close. I know the East does not have a recurring winner in the last like 20-ish years, and I think this year we might actually see it. I think the Eagles will take the division. The Commanders will be second. I think it's going to be the same standings as it was last year, just because although there has been changes, of course, to every team, I don't see any dramatic changes that make one team better or worse than where they were last time. I think they'll all get their good wins and their bad losses, but I think overall it's going to be Eagles winning the division, and the first time in something out years where an NFC East team has won back to back. Commanders will take second, Cowboys will get third, and Giants will be the cellar dweller again. Another tough year for them. But that's about this one. And I'm going to end up going to the next division, the next video. It's going to be the NFC South. That should definitely be interesting to say the least. A lot of wonderful teams in that one. But in that case, hope you guys enjoyed. Feel free to drop some comments down there in the chat, and then definitely we'll be able to get a chance to talk a little bit of football. Tell me what you think. Make sure to subscribe if you did enjoy listening, and I will see you on the next one.